أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد
اللهم صل على
وعلى
محمد
آله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. Last week we spoke about the battle of the camel or Jamal. Further to our previous discussions of Aisha, who was the prime leader, the main leader of the battle of the camel or Jamal. And there is no doubt that it was Aisha who played a major role in this battle, which finally led to the murder of thousands of people or Muslims from both sides. As we know, Aisha caused the battle of the Jamal under the pretext of avenging the murder of Osman or the blood of Osman, while Aisha herself was an enemy of Osman, and when Osman was killed, she felt very happy with his murder. I would like to stop speaking about the Battle of the Jamal. I think we have spoken or discussed the Battle of the Jamal roughly, that sufficiently, and I think there is no need to speak more about the Battle of the Jamal. But I'd like to mention one point which seems to be very important. Of course, we have tried to disclose or reveal some of the crimes or errors as committed by Osman, the so-called third caliph. If you remember, while discussing Bay'atul Rizwan, the allegiance which the Prophet ﷺ paid to some of his companions under a tree, and then an ayah was revealed in this regard, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with this allegiance. That is why this allegiance is termed or is called Bay'atul Rizwan. That is, the allegiance with which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased. If you remember, one of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam decided to wait with his own companions until the difference or the problem between the Prophet and the Quraysh became settled or solved. And Osman, according to the history of Tabari, was chosen as a representative and was sent to talk to the Quraysh. But this is what Ja'far as-Subhani mentions in his the message, Furuq Abadiyat. This book, the two-volume book, as written by Subhani, was originally written in Persian, and the title of the two-volume book is Furuq Abadiyat. In English, can be translated as the light of eternity. Subhani quotes Tabari and says that Osman was sent to the Quraysh as representing the Prophet, while according to this book, As-Siratun Nabawiyah, the prophetic or the prophetic practice or the prophet's practice, the opposite is true. The writer of this book called Naja At-Ta'i, who wrote, the 2-volume book called As-Siratun Nabawiyya, rejects the idea that Osman was sent to the Quraysh representing the Prophet. On page 18 of this book, volume 2, he says, that he begins the discussion under this title, بطلب من ذهب عثمان إلى مكة. بطلب من ذهب عثمان, that under whose call or invitation, or who invited Osman to go to Mecca? This is a question. Sobhani, in his book The Light of Eternity, which was translated as The Message in English, says that the Prophet agreed when it was suggested to the Prophet that the Osman should be sent to the Quraysh, because Omar was called to go to the Quraysh. He says that he wouldn't go. So Osman was instead chosen to go to the Quraysh, to talk to the Quraysh. But the writer of this book says, بطلب من Osman ذهب Osman إلى مكة. بطلب من, it means that who invited, who called Osman. He says, Quraysh invited. وكانت قريش قد دعت بعض المسلمين للتوافي في الكعبة وزيارة مكة إنادا للنبي. The Quraysh invited some of the Muslims للتواف, to circumambulate, it means that to move around the Kaaba, وزيارة مكة, and to visit and to go on pilgrimage to the Mecca. إنادا للنبي. إنادا للنبي means opposing the Nabi. Opposing, in order to oppose the Nabi. إنادا للنبي, it means against the Nabi. فلبى ذلك عبد الله بن أبي. So Abdullah ibn Ubay accepted their invitation. وعثمان بن عفان. So the second person who accepted the invitation of the Quraysh, inadan, as a sign of hostility towards the Prophet. The second one was Uthman ibn Affan. Uthman, the son of Affan. فتدخل عبد الله بن أبي فمنع أباه. Abdullah ibn Ubay interfered in this issue and prevented his father, and saying to his father, لا تفزحنا بكل موطن أتطوف ولم يطف رسول الله. It means that don't disgrace us in every place, everywhere. Are you going to go on pilgrimage, or are you going to circumambulate or to move around the Kaaba while the Prophet did not do? فروي زيفا أن عثمان كان موفدا مع عشرة مسلمين إلى مكة. Then it was narrated falsely, not truly. It was narrated falsely that Osman was a representative accompanied by 10 Muslims to Mecca. Now, with this view in mind, with this view in mind, the question is, if you remember, one of the reasons why Osman was killed was that Osman was absent from the battles of Badr and Uhud. وَلَمْ يَشْهَدْ بَيْعَةَ الرِّضْوَانِ, and he was not witness to the bay'ah of Rizwan. Then I myself asked myself, I wonder. On one hand, Subhani says in his the message that Osman was sent to the Quraysh to talk to them as a representative of the Prophet. When it was suggested to the Prophet when Umar suggested to the Prophet that Osman be sent to the Quraysh, right? On the other hand, Allama al-Hilli in his Kashf al-Murad says that the people who attacked Osman in order to kill him, one of the reasons was that, the Sahaba, the companions who were angry with him, right, blamed him because of being absent from the battles of Badr and Uhud, and at the same time he was not present during the allegiance of Rizwan. So how can we reconcile, right? Reconcile the two opposing narrations. On one hand, Osman was blamed by some of the companions that he was absent from the battles of Badr and Uhud, and at the same time he was not present. He did not witness the allegiance of Rizwan. But in order to settle the difference, that is why An-Najah al-Ta'i says that Osman was not sent to the Quraysh, but Osman himself did it. إن عثمان لم يكن موفدا من قبل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. Osman was not a representative on behalf of the Messenger of God صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. بل ذهب بنفسه إلى مكة. But he himself went to Mecca. بدعوة قريشية, at the invitation of the Quraysh. في حين رد عبد الله بن أبي زعيم المنافقين دعوة قريش قائلا, while Abdullah ibn Ubay, Za'im al-Munafiqin, the leader of the hypocrites, rejected the invitation of the Quraysh and said, لا أتوف حتى يطوف رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. I won't go on pilgrimage to Mecca until the Prophet goes to Mecca, until the Prophet moves around the Mecca. إن علاقة بين رسول الله وعثمان قد صارت بعد فرار عثمان عن معركة بدر وأحد. The relation between Osman and the Prophet became worse. After he escaped, after he escaped from the two battles of Badr and Uhud. Osman fled. Osman escaped from the two battles of Badr and Uhud. ثم إخفاءه جاسوس المشركين والممثل بجثته حمزة بن معاوية بن المغيرة بن أبي العاص. Osman hid the spy, jasus spy of the mushrikeen, of the polytheists. والممثل, and the person who maimed, who cut to pieces the body of Hamza ibn Muawiyah, the son of Mughira, the son of Abil Abbas. وَقَتْلُهُ رُغَيَّا, and he murdered, and because of his murdering Rughayya, the stepdaughter of Rasulullah. وتواترت أخبار غياب عثمان عن بيعته في العصر الإسلامية الأول لذا قال الطبري لإخفاء الحقيقية إن الذي كان من أمر عثمان باطل. So Osman went to Mecca without the permission of the Prophet, and in this way he avoided the allegiance of Rizwan. But what Tabari says is not correct, definitely. Because there are some other sources which completely reject. What? So Tabari hid the truth. And I am surprised why Jafar Sobhani quoted, why Jafar Sobhani disregarded some of the other sources while dealing with the Bay'ah of Rizwan. This much is enough, and what I'm going to do for a few weeks is that, however, we wanted to speak about one of the other khutbah or sermons of the Nahj Balagha. This is what we will do. Today, I'm going to, unfortunately, there are no more people today because what I'm going to speak about today is very important and interesting. There is a 2-volume book called by Saduq, who was one of the most important Shi'i traditionists and jurists. Saduq, alayhi rahmah. Uyun Akhbar al-Ridha. Uyun Akhbar al-Ridha is one of the most important books consisting of different traditions as narrated from different A'imma, from Imam Riza, just from Imam Riza. Uyun Akhbar al-Ridha. I mean that Uyun is the plural of Ain. Ain means spring, fountains. I mean the fountains of the traditions or narrations of Imam Riza alayhi salam in 2 volumes. This 2-volume book was translated into English, but unfortunately, the translation is mostly irritating. So many errors. The translator, of course, spent a lot of time. He took pains, but I think he seems not to be familiar with Arabic. I recommend that the translator should be, first of all, familiar with the source language. Technically, source language means, for example, while I'm translating from English into Persian, English is the source language, Persian is the target language. So a good translator is one who should be familiar both with the source language and the target language. A translator who is going to translate from Arabic into English, he should be familiar both with Arabic and English. He should be or she should be familiar with Arabic grammar and so on. Secondly, as you know, even in English or in any other language, there are so many words which are polysemic. There are so many words which have more than one meaning. So, in order to find out which meaning is intended, we should consider the context in which the word is used. Like, for example, there are so many, we can give a lot of examples, like spring in English. Spring, right? Spring. Spring in English, which is a multi-meaning word, right? And the equivalents as used by the translator are mostly wrong. For example, an example, masah, masah. In English we say rubbing the head with a wet hand, or wiping the head with a moist hand. This is a good translation of the masah. But he said pouring water. No, it is wrong. It is wrong. Anyway, in this book, which is volume 2, there is a there is a letter as written by Imam Riza alayhi salam to Ma'mun. When Ma'mun asked Imam Riza alayhi salam to explain in brief pure Islam, the genuine Islam. So Imam Riza alayhi salam agreed and sent a letter containing the best points regarding Islam. Maybe I am not maybe in volume this is volume 2. Again, this hadith was also mentioned in Tuhaful Ughul. Tuhaful Ughul is also another hadith book containing a lot of hadith or traditions. Tuhaful Ughul, which was also translated into English, consists of a lot of hadith as narrated from different A'imma alayhim salam. Maybe in this is volume right. Maybe in volume 1. Anyway, so I'm going to explain this hadith, which consists of aqa'id, the beliefs, ahkam, the rules, and akhlaq, ethics. It should be in another volume, which I left home. It doesn't matter. I thought that it would be better, especially for the young adults, to become familiar with Islam as it is. So it would be better to know about Islam, to become familiar with Islam as it is, through the tongue of the 8th Shiite Imam, Al-Imam Riza alayhi salam. I'm going to explain this hadith based on Tuhaful Ughul. وروي عن الإمام من الحمام أبي الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا في تبال هذه المعاني جوابه عليه السلام للمأمون. روي أن المأمون بعث الفضل بن السعد ذا الرياستين إلى الرضا عليه السلام. Ma'mun, as you know, was one of the most famous Abbasid caliphs, Ma'mun al-Ma'mun. He was the son of Harun al-Rashid. Ma'mun was Harun al-Rashid had two sons, Amin and Ma'mun. Ma'mun was the second son or the younger son of Harun al-Rashid. Ma'mun sent Fazl ibn Sa'd. Who was Fazl ibn Sa'd? This is very important. I'm going to comment. I'm not going to translate. I am not act as a translator. I'm going to explain in detail, not just translate, because you can read. Reading is so easy. No. I'm going to bring out the hidden meanings, to explain, to comment using some other sources. That is why it may take several weeks. Fazl ibn Sa'd was the minister of Ma'mun. Why is Zu Riyasatain? Zu Riyasatain means having two posts, having two positions. Two. Why? Fazl ibn Sa'd had another brother called Hassan ibn Sa'd. They were two brothers. Fazl ibn Sa'd was very clever, intelligent, and educated. They were Zoroastrians, Majusi, Magian Zoroastrians. They were originally Zoroastrians. And according to some sources, their father converted to Islam. They became famous during the Baramakids, who were Iranians, Baramakids. When Ma'mun became caliph, Fazl ibn Sa'd became his minister, vizier. In the past, and Fazl ibn Sa'd was the minister of Ma'mun. He was in fact the prime minister of Ma'mun, the premier of Ma'mun. At that time, there was not a board of ministers. For example, minister of health, minister of education, minister of and so on. So no, there was just one minister who was in fact the prime minister. Not only Fazl ibn Sa'd was the minister, or in other words, the vizier or the prime minister of Ma'mun, he had another post. At the same time, he was chief of the general staff. Chief of the general staff. At the same time, he was the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. That is why Fazl ibn Sa'd is called Zurriyasatain. I think now it is quite clear. Right? Ila Riza alayhi salam. So Ma'mun sent Fazl ibn Sa'd, who was both his prime minister, his minister, and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, to Imam Riza alayhi salam. فَقَالَ لَهُ. Ma'mun said to Imam Riza, إِنِّي أحب أن تجمع لي من الحرام والحلال والحرام والفرائض والسنن فإنك حجة الله على خلقه ومعدن العلم فدعا الرضا عليه السلام بدوات وغطاس وقال عليه السلام للفضل اكتب. So Ma'mun said, I want you to write to me about halal, about that which is religiously permitted, that which is religiously prohibited, and the fara'is, the religious obligations, but sunnah, and about the obligatory obligations and rulings. فَإِنَّكَ حُجَّةُ اللَّهِ. Ma'mun addressing Imam Riza, you are the proof of God. عَلَى خَلْقِهِ, over his creatures, over his, عَلَى خَلْقِهِ. وَمَعْدِنِ الْعِلْمِ, you are the source of knowledge. فَدَعَى Imam Riza. Imam Riza asked for ink and paper. Then Imam Riza alayhi salam said to fast, write, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, most merciful and compassionate. Up to here, I hope that everything is clear. Hasbuna shahadatu an la ilaha illallah. It suffices. It is sufficient. It will say, La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. There is no God but Allah. This is kalimat al-tawheed, the profession of the oneness of God. We as Muslims believe that there is only one God. And the only God is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We say Allah. Allah is a proper noun, implying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has all the perfections, all the perfect names and qualities. La ilaha illallah. We believe just in one God. There is only one God. Just one God. Ahadan, Samadan. Ahadan, the one. Who is the one? The one, the only one, the only one. Ahad, the unique. Ahad, unique, the unique. Unique. It means that it means that there is not a second God. When we say Ahad, it means that the unique, without having a second God, without there being a second one. This is Ahad. When we say one, after one follows two. But Ahad is not within the category of numbers. Is not within the category of the numbers. According to Allama Tabatabai, Ahad is not a number. The number starts from two, not from one. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. As we read في Surah Al-Ikhlas, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Surah Al-Ikhlas, as you know, is Surah Al-Tawheed. I mean that the verse of the purity of faith is one of the most famous chapters in the Quran. Surah Al-Tawheed. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. When we say قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, ha. According to some commentators, it means that one day some of the idol worshippers, some of the unbelievers, while pointing to their idols, said, "Oh Muhammad, these are our gods, the idols. You also should describe your God so that we can see Him, so that we can see, so that we can understand your God." Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down this ayah. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Huwa begins with ha. The word ha is usually used in Arabic just to attract our attention. Just to attract our attention. Just to draw our attention. Ha. Huwa. Waf is a pronoun. Wav is a pronoun. A pronoun referring to an absent person. It means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is invisible. Absent from the senses. Absent from the senses. Absent from the senses. So huwa in Arabic is a third person singular pronoun. Huwa. For example, I say huwa, he. Huwa, he. But here, if we analyze huwa, ha is used to attract the attention. Yeah, it means that God, we can't say where God is. Allah is everywhere. God, in order to, huwa, God, he, God, is invisible, cannot